Okay, well, let's get started, everyone. My name is Patricia Gagnon, and I am the Chief Experience Officer at Intellispark, and I am very, very excited to feature some amazing leaders today from West Virginia. Some of you may know some of these presenters we'll be hearing from. I'm sure you do. But I am very eager for them to be able to share with you some of the fantastic work happening in their buildings, in their districts. They are just fantastic partners. The focus for our discussion today is exactly what you see on the screen here. Principals, assistant principals, making MTSS easy. But as we all know, MTSS has many facets, many important facets, which can feel like unwieldy facets because there are so many aspects to it. And what we will be talking about today is how these leaders in West Virginia, your colleagues, are meeting the needs or striving to meet the needs, and I would say doing pretty well at addressing these growing, expanding sets of needs of the students in your schools today. They are going to be sharing how they are saving time, working more collaboratively, and ideally reducing headaches for their staffs and for themselves, we hope, through the amazing strategies that are being facilitated through their use of Intellispark. Each panelist will share a key strategy or two, explain how they're implementing, and share a lesson learned along the way. We will be doing introductions in a moment, and we'll go through our agenda. But first, I just wanted to hand off to my colleague, Ken Broermann, who's just going to share a little bit before we dive into the introductions and the actual discussion.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today. There's some amazing work going on in West Virginia. I just want to share very briefly. Intellispark, our goal is to help make student success a team sport. And how do we make this very easy for principals and their teams to be able to do some of the things that we want to with PBIS, MTSS, and student support? So we are supporting schools and then, actually many buildings in these counties around the state. So we're in 7 counties today. You're going to hear from folks about what it is we're doing to make that easier today. So I won't talk too much about it, but I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. I'm going to hand it back off to Patricia.
Thank you, Ken. One thing that I want to say is, I know we have a precious additional 55 minutes of your time this morning. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will try to address those. If not in this discussion, we will capture those and chat with our speakers to get answers back to you. But we will try to address them during the discussion if we can, because we know how time is so critical and it's sort of hard to come back around. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat. Additionally, this session is being recorded, and so you will have it to reference, to share with colleagues if you want to recall what's being shared today. Okay, so for our agenda, we're going to start with, I'm going to actually have each presenter introduce themselves as we go along to kind of streamline. And what I'm going to do is ask them to present, and then they will talk about a couple of key strategies that they have implemented this year or in their time with Intellispark, a little bit about keys to the implementation, how they did it, and lessons learned. I think what you're going to see, which I love, is that each of our presenters has been with us for a different period of time. We've got some of our longest standing partners on this call, and we've got some folks who are just starting. So you are hearing the raw reactions fresh off the press, and that's what we just love, is because they just tell it like it is, and that's why they're so fantastic. Okay, so we're going to start first with Meredith Dailer. And Meredith is coming to us from Wheeling Park High School in Ohio County. And Meredith, I'm going to ask you, as you start off, as you introduce yourself, just share a little bit about the number of students served at Wheeling Park High School, anything that you consider unique about this community. I'll remind you, the most significant challenger to you're seeing your students face, and why you've embraced this program before you start off with your specific strategies. So if you could kick off, Meredith.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, am I allowed to do that? I'm sending a request. Did you get that, Patricia? While
Yes.
she's doing that, hi, Meredith Dailer, Wheeling Park High School. I've been the principal here for 5 years. We have about 1,500 kids and 135 staff members. And when I think about, Intellispark, one of the things when I talk about relationships is that we have to be really intentional about how we build those relationships. And knowing our kids in a building this size can be really, really challenging. So Intellispark, really, that's what captured us to begin. And then from there, it really became a piece of organization and efficiency and filling some gaps that's so important to us. So I think I can share my screen now. Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Awesome. And let me move myself around and present. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. I did want to start by sharing how we implemented. We came along, I heard about Intellispark last December at the West Virginia Principals Association conference from Shelby and Martinsburg High School, and started a conversation about pulling in this tool. In February of last year, my counselors and administrators, we all started playing with it and really found some value, definitely in efficiency and communication about our kids. So from there, fourth 9 weeks of second semester, we rolled out just notes to our staff and asked them to start using notes in lieu of emails back and forth. And that's where we started. It was really very small. And then over the summer, I worked with Patricia quite a bit on building some of these pieces you're going to see. And we did a full rollout implementation with our staff starting this school year. And we use it, I would say, with pretty strong fidelity. Lots happening in here, but today I'm really going to focus on PBIS. It is a multi-tiered system of support. We are a PBIS Tier 1 model school. Our expectations are to be positive, attentive, respectful, and keep going. And just about anything we bring into our building, new implementations, we try to fit it under this umbrella. That's how important it is to us. So with Intellispark, I think the first thing that really captured us was this idea of high fives. With PBIS, and again, a school this building, how you are acknowledging your students when they are displaying those positive behaviors you want can be a really, really heavy lift. I know a lot of schools use online. For years, we have used what we called park cards. And when a teacher would see a student being positive, attentive, respectful, or keep going, they would hand them this park card. From there, the kids would drop it off in the office. And that worked for us really well. But I also really believe in the continuous improvement cycle. And when we have tools brought to us like Intellispark, we ran with it. High fives and park cards are, in my opinion, synonymous with one another. So we have, starting this school year, rolled all of our paper park cards into the electronic high fives. And I built our high fives to match our expectations. So when our teachers go in to give a high five, they pick from positive, attentive, respectful, or keep going. And this is an improvement for us in a lot of ways. We struggled for years. I would hear, well, I've never gotten a park card, or only the good kids don't get park cards. And I had no way of supporting that data unless I was going through the, 14,000 park cards we gave out and sorting them by kids, which isn't very efficient. So now I have that ability to know and to see who is receiving park cards. I also have the ability to hold my teachers accountable. This is a research-based, process. It is very much who we are. But I also didn't have a way of knowing who was giving park cards. Again, without sorting them by hand, I couldn't see, how much of my staff, who had bought in. I didn't have any of that information ever available to me.
Mm.
And then also, how many are we giving? How, thorough are we being? Are we using this to our advantage? So Intellispark has provided all of that for us. When we go into the reporting, it's show me the data. And this is one of the best pieces I have found, when we joined Intellispark, this was not available. And I shared with them, like, I need to be able to pull reports out of this. I need to be able to see who's received, who's giving, how often. And they whip this right up for me. And we use it literally all the time. I can sort my park card data, my high fives, by date. I can do a straight list of who has received them. I can see my staff members, how many they have given in any time range that I want. I can also see the kids that have not received one, and that's really, really valuable for us. The way we use this data, with fidelity, every single week, we, put in those dates. We pull all the students into an Excel spreadsheet, and that's how I pull my park card winners. And I acknowledge and reward those kids that have received a high five. At the same time, in the same week, I pull the teachers that have given out high fives, and I see who's given out the most of them, and that teacher then receives an acknowledgement. I am using PBIS and Intellispark, tracking to be able to really reward and acknowledge my teachers for doing this behavior that I want them to do, giving out park cards and high fives. And then quarterly, I've asked my teachers, like we just had a PL day on Friday. I said, please take the time to go into Intellispark and look at your rosters. Find kids that have not received
I'll put it in your
cards,
mailbox.
and send them. So that has really been a game changer for us. When I scroll through kids and the number of kids that have not received any positive reinforcement in our building, I can then, direct my staff to that, and they can acknowledge it too, and put out that positive reinforcement to our kids. Certainly a relationship builder.
Meredith, have you received any specific feedback from students or from staff just on if it's helped them or feeling like suddenly they're known? Anything
Yeah,
there?
so certainly my student council kids, I ask them, like, are we getting high fives? And actually, yeah, I got one on the PL day the other day, so that's that good group of kids that were often forgotten, for those teachers that teach honors and AP classes, those kids are wonderful. They're showing those, expectations all the time, but not necessarily being reinforced for them. So that has been a big win for us. And then being able to celebrate my teachers using it. Even on the PL days, we run the report, and that allows us to go back to staff and say, hey, we noticed you're not giving out a ton of these. They could be really beneficial for you and your classroom management and building relationships. We're certainly using it in that way.
And I feel like I've also heard the notion that, let's personalize them. Like you can also see what it's saying and like, let's make this meaningful so that the student knows that it's not just something that's getting thrown out there, but something that's being thrown out with some real thought to it, to make them feel like, wow, they're really paying attention to me.
Yeah, I mean, it can be as simple as just choosing the ones that I've already built that match our expectations. But most of my teachers always I shouldn't say always, but most of my teachers also put a little note really specific about what they are acknowledging for that kid. Really looking forward to meshing our parent emails into the high fives and being able to ship those out via email to staff, and kind of two birds, one stone. Putting those positive messages out into our parent community is really high priority for us. Like we do postcards right now every so often, but to be able to be sending out hundreds of these, each and every week would be phenomenal in building that positive, culture with our parents as well.
Yeah, and what Meredith is referencing is that we have the ability, if we've pulled in your parent email addresses, which we're doing with many of our schools, you can CC the parent on any message that goes to the student so that, especially if you have middle and high school students, that they're not always sharing with their parents what's going on at school, for better or for worse. And this is a really nice way to just seamlessly have this parent be like, oh my gosh, that's really cool that you did that. And the student's like, how do you know? Well, because I was copied too. And so it creates this nice cycle of positive reinforcement across everybody in the community.
Yep.
Meredith, one more question, and I know this is not just a simple one, But you had also mentioned things about you know, the use of your flags and supports to kind of more easily track what were the needs for your students. And so can you share a little bit about how you're using those flags and to raise awareness to the right people, be it social worker, CIS, or whatnot?
Yeah. So when we implemented at the beginning of the school year, I created this kind of infographic for our staff to really understand the major pieces. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about flags and supports, but what we describe a flag this is when you need something to happen. Like a note is an FYI, but a flag, I need somebody to do something with this information. And so we use flags for attendance, discipline, mental health, and student well-being. And then supports for us, those are very much our tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. So when you talk about positive behavior interventions and supports, Intellispark captures all of that for us. And we have really built a really strong place to communicate those supports as well as have a system to report them. You know, so for us, I'm going to move this. So for us throwing flags, we have placed all of our referrals in one place.
Nice.
If you have attendance referrals, if you do a referral to community and schools, we have discipline referrals, cell phone issues, family needs, hygiene concerns, mental health concerns, risk assessments, and even student concerns for non-emergency. And we've built these in a way that when you throw a flag, they go to the specific people that need them, whether that be, you know, your social worker or your attendance director or just your counselors. We've built all of our flags so that that information gets shot out to those people immediately. From there, you know, we have built out all of our supports, you know, taking this time to think about what tier 2, tier 3 supports do we have in place, and building them in Intellispark has been really worth the effort because now everything lives here. It has created this really nice workflow. And I don't think we talk about that in education enough. Like, how do we make all of these things connect and flow, and who does what next and when? So we've had really great conversations and have built better efficiency around those things. I have secretaries tagged into it. And we've ended all of our spreadsheets. You know, it all lives here. Everybody knows where to go and what that flow looks like. Now, it's taken us time, and we've had periodic meetings like, this flow isn't working, I need to tag that person in, or take me off of that flag. We do those things. But the communication that it's built amongst my kind of internal team is invaluable. We're not digging around in emails. We're not looking up teachers' schedules and then popping in their emails into something else. It's all right there for everyone that's involved with the student. It's recorded, it's saved, it's housed in one place. That's been really, really nice for us. The other thing that we really like about our supports is that we've connected them to tags, which I'll show you a visual here in a minute, but these quick visual reminders of what's going on with our kids. You know, I had a teacher say, Billy hasn't been in class in forever, and when you pull up Intellispark, the tag tells you they're on homebound. Like, yeah, they're still on your roll, but they're on homebound. And now we have this way to communicate that. And teachers, you know, it's just an easy reminder of certain things that are going on with our kids that we've kind of connected the supports and the tags for that visual piece and communication. And then the tracking, the reporting in this, the creation of lists to share when we need them. At any time, I can pull up a list of homebound kids. At any time, I can pull up a list of kids that are in AMP, which is our attendance mediation program. You know, I can, if I need to know who's on my community and school attendance caseworkers load, I just pull her Intellispark and it's right there. Again, we've really eliminated a lot of that spreadsheet action that was all over the place for our internal team. But also within that, shared a lot of communication for our teachers that just isn't available easily anywhere else. So that's been incredibly valuable for us. So you can see here, these are some of the supports that we have created. And this is even some of our discipline stuff. That is an intervention in our world. So if we're giving after school detention, we consider that a tier 1, not something we want to necessarily tag to see every single day. But some of these homebound, that to us is a tier 3 intervention for students. And we do send it as a tag so that teachers can see it very, very easily. And again, you can see, so cell phone jail, we've had 123 kids in cell phone jail. That's quick and easy data at my fingertips. I could pull that as a report if needed, to be able to share with my Board of Education if they want to know how my cell phone implementation is going. I have this quick, easy data all in one place for us.
Wow. Meredith, if you could speak to, and I know we're like going for the fire hose here with everyone, so I love it. Two quick questions for you, and then I'm going to certainly once again remind people to please put questions in the chat, and we will try to answer as we go. And then I'm going to move on to Paden. But Meredith, two questions. One is, so often we hear, oh my gosh, I can't talk to my teachers about anything new. It's gonna crush. Like, I can't go there. How has the response been from your classroom teachers? I know your core student support people, it's helping them with their workflow a lot. What has the reaction been from the broader staff outside of that core student support and administrative team?
We've gotten to a place where they rely on it. You know, even in department chair today, it was like, can I get the notes a little bit sooner than the weekly digest? You know, so then it's like, all right, well, here's a place where you can go find them and see them on a daily basis. Or do we want to tell the staff, click everybody, add team members to every single note? So we still have these really great conversations about communicating with our kids. You know, someone might say, can you add a tag? Like, I'd really like to know if that's a kid that gets out early for work-based integration. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, that could, sure.
Right.
You know, so they communicate with us what they still need to see and know, and we just build it, you know, and that's kind of the last thing I had here is if you build it, they will come. You know, it was so important for me to take Intellispark. If I'm paying for it, I want to use it. So let me, you know, pack it with so many pieces and this, make it this one-stop shop for my staff. Like, if I need to, if I know a kid needs something, I know I go to Intellispark and I can communicate that to anybody at any time.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I love that slide. And you know, I'm gonna probably save my question for later. My other question, it involves, you know, privacy and who sees what and things like that. So I'll come back to that.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Meredith. Again, I invite people to put questions in the chat as well. Any urgent questions for Meredith at this time? It's a lot. That was a lot. Thank you. But it's been amazing. I can't get over how quickly they've taken the deep dive. Okay, on to you, Paden. Paden Morris, who is our high school principal at Tyler Consolidated in Tyler County. Paden, again, if you can share, you know, just the size of the school with which you work, and kind of the integration of middle school and high school, uniqueness about your community and biggest challenges that your students face, and why you took the deep dive, and then what your key pieces are that you're using.
Yeah, my name's Paden Morris, principal at Tyler Consolidated High School. I've been the principal here. This is my 4th school year as the principal. I too, like Meredith, learned about Intellispark at the West Virginia Association of Secondary School Principals Conference from Shelby and Martinsburg High School. And I saw it, I took back the information, and I went directly to my team at the Student Success Center, which is made up of some of the most incredible individuals that I've ever worked with. And I thought, what a great tool that we could utilize to kind of keep ourselves organized, keep ourselves on the same page, as we've seen some growing, as all schools have, growing concerns with behavior, growing concerns with attendance, growing concerns with social emotional learning and mental health. And we found, you know, I kind of felt like we were finding ourselves in a place where we were kind of chasing our tails and trying to facilitate a lot of information to a lot of different people to keep everybody on the same page, and thought this would be a great tool for us to adopt and put in place. So when we started really in February, we started with the administrators and those staff members in our Student Success Center, which include our 2 school counselors, our social worker, our school psychologist, and then we kind of got our middle school kind of started in that with their administrator and school counselor, because we've thought what a great opportunity this would provide us as we we're a standalone high school in the county. We're the only high school in the county. We share our campus with our middle school. We have 2 elementary schools in the county, and I'm hoping that we continue to expand in that direction to where we have a clear picture of our students as they come through and all this information that's been collected over time, so we can determine and best support our students as they navigate this journey in Tyler County schools, inevitably leading them to graduation night here at Tyler Consolidated High School. So that's where we started, and we found a lot of success with our internal communication amongst that team, collecting data, as Meredith has said as well. And really the biggest thing is it improved our accountability and follow through. It kept us organized. It kept us to keep looking forward to what the next step is, and what our direction is, or what support or what we can do to put in place to ensure that this student has the opportunity to be successful. And I kind of say it made everything more actionable. It was like an end result here. We were coming to a conclusion. It wasn't those things that were kind of stuck in our inbox or stuck in the back of our head that we knew we needed to revisit. It kind of really just kept us going forward. And I feel, and I invited some of my team members to join here today too, to listen so we can learn from other schools as well. And I think that if they don't mind me speaking for them, it has been a very useful tool for that as well. So then when we came back this fall, we released a lot of the features out to our entire school staff member, all our teachers, which included the notes, which included high fives, which we based around our character education program. And what we've really seen here is, and are continuing to see, is just more efficient and effective documentation that's taking place around academics, attendance, and students' mental health and well-being. Information is being shared with me that I probably would not have typically been aware of, since I'm not in the classroom interacting with those students on a day-to-day basis. And at the same time, information is being shared with teachers from myself and our student success team that may not know some of the backstory that's taking place with these students. So they know kind of the best approach for when those students return to their classroom, or vice versa, if those students end up making a visit here to my office. One thing that really has been our focal point since getting our teachers on board has kind of been our collaborative communication. And I just kind of bulleted some of those things that I've mentioned here right now. Is this increased efficiency and accountability, making those things actionable and following through and communicating with the necessary people or the people that need to know. I feel like it's helped tremendously from certain things falling through the cracks or getting lost or not followed up on. Biggest thing, like I said, is actionable steps and follow through, and accessible and informative documentation that is can be available to any party that we feel is necessary and that need to know. And just like the big thing, like Meredith said, insights and relationship building. I feel like across the board, since we've rolled this out to our entire staff, is that our teachers, myself, our student success center team are getting clear pictures and insights of students to where we know where you can connect with them, identify the people that do connect with them, we know how we can approach certain situations to be best supportive. And me personally, it's provided me great insight where I know I need to handle some situations a little differently or offer a little bit more grace, depending on what some of these other factors that are going on in these students' life. We know as administrators, as teachers, that not everyone can be in the room at the same time. If you're having a parent meeting, it's hard to pull teachers out of classrooms to get them there. You're finding coverage. We have collaboration scheduled in the morning. People have duties at certain times throughout the school year where they're unable to attend. We are fortunate at Tyler Consolidated High School to have Common Plan. But I always say, we are sharing that information in an email. And one of the scariest places I've ever been as a school principal was in someone else's inbox of their email, because you open that up and they have 6,000 unread clutter messages, 400 in their regular inbox, and my own head starts to spin. And I know that's a lot of information that they're trying to manage as well. And stuff was getting lost. So Intellispark has given us that one space where we know we can find everything, we know we can put everything, and we know we can facilitate that to people where, hey, I'm going to get that, whether now or go back and look at it. I'm going to get that in my my digest on the Monday morning. But I know that, okay, that's going to be that kind of reminder that these things are things that I need to know.
Paden, can you speak a little bit about the digest? Because I think what people may be wondering if they've never seen this before is, well, what's the difference between how you experience information in Intellispark and a whole bunch of 6,000 emails going to your inbox? Like, is it like, well, this is just a replacement for my inbox? What is the difference in how you receive and engage? And what's the weekly digest?
The difference is with the weekly digest for me is that it's one thread where I can see all those things that I need to know. And if you're a team member assigned to this student, you're getting the information that is relevant to you. I know in the past, like we have TLCs or handle with cares and stuff like that. And that would be sent, to our whole teacher group, even if those students didn't have that teacher. Mm-hmm. Now it's more intentional that and it's easy. I mean, that really, just to kind of emphasize what Meredith said, it's so easy now. I don't have to go into Weavis and find a schedule and make sure that, we're in the right term and that we have the right people on a thread. It's all connected. It's all integrated. And it makes it super easy to get that information to the right people at the right time too.
And just to explain to people, what happens is that we integrate with your student information system with Weavis or whatever it may be. And so the teachers will only see the pages, the hub pages for the students that they have that semester or for that year. And so the weekly digest, which comes out on Monday morning, gives you the stream that Paden just mentioned with just the kids that you should see. So if you're a principal, you may be seeing all of the flags or supports or notes for all the kids in the school, but you'll see if it's a flag or a note or what it is. If you're a teacher, it's just going to be for your kids, and no one has to do the work of pulling that together. It'll automatically happen.
Yeah. And then,
yeah, go ahead, Paden.
And then too, we just recently got parent contact information uploaded in there as well, which is going to be extremely helpful and beneficial with our messages, and most importantly, our high fives that we're utilizing as well, to where the parents can see some of that positive stuff too coming to their inbox, that their students being recognized. And that's kind of the next thing I want to say. It's become a very beneficial tool for us when we do have parents at the table, and we can bring up this information and share with them and kind of say, here are some of the things that we've been doing. These are the supports that we've put in place. This is how much we've tried to contact. It brings a full picture that it is really a team effort to the parent, and we're really wanting to extend that opportunity for them to become part of the team, because we're doing these things. And we know that's a challenge at times, is to get parents, one, to come in and sit at the table, and two, to be on the same team as the school system, to see all these things. And when we have those tangible things that we can show them, and I'll have a few examples of how we've utilized that here to show you as well. It's been much more effective. And we've had a lot of success and interactions with those parents. And the one of the most favorite things from people is the pictures. I know at the beginning of the school year, our 9th grade teachers were going in there and just already getting to know what students were going to be walking into their room, getting a face with the name. And when I bring up the pictures, because it's always last year's pictures, the parents are like, oh my goodness, look how much they've changed in a year's time. So depending on when those things get updated, but we still haven't put our new pictures in yet. So they're from last year. So it's been kind of a genuine interaction with those to see that as well, and everything. But one strategy that we do is that when we're having a concern brought up to a student in preparation for a parent meeting, I'll send a note out on Intellispark to all team members, if you could reply this note on update on the academic performance and behavior in preparation for this parent meeting, I'd greatly appreciate it. And I send that out to all team members on that student's team. And then we get a thread of replies like this to where it wins the battle of whether do I reply just to Mr. Morris or do I reply all? Because in those situations, I feel like it's really important that we reply all, but we know in quick habits and responding to emails, some people get that, and then I end up having 6 different things that I'm trying to pull together, and other people don't get to see the experiences that they're having with that student. And if you have a moment to kind of scan through this, you'll see that in this circumstance, there are several positive things that are going on with that student, but also some things that are concerning that we need to look at. So then in preparation for that meeting, I had all this information. The people that came to the table had all this information too. And those that weren't able to be there were able to provide their input and voice too for me or others to share as well. And that's been a really good tool for us to bring to the table with the parent when having those meetings. Just another example here. This was more centered around behavior concerns. We've put multiple interventions in place, but weren't finding much success. So we're bringing the parent to the table and see what our next steps are there. And we sent that information out as well. And then we get a lot of this quality, important information to where we can walk into that parent meeting and share some strategies that are going well. And I brought this one in particularly because it emphasized a specific date where this student was really having trouble in class, like up to this point, this day, however, was the worst day that he's performed in class. And it allowed for us to kind of dig a little deeper on that. And what we found out was that this student's father travels for 2 weeks at a time. And sometimes he has to have extended stays for that. And he just got informed that he was going to have an extended stay. So that triggered some of those behaviors here at school, which was good information that we later went and added to this at the conclusion of the meeting. As well, and shared that with the staff members to say like, hey, this is what's probably going on and causing this, and it gives everybody a complete understanding.
Yeah, and Paden, what I love about this is that we don't know who on the team is going to get this information, right? It could be any teacher at any time, any staff member, and the process of trying to figure out all the other people who should know in and of itself can take 15 to 20 minutes. So to be able to get this information, get it to the team stat and say, all right, now we know the story, let's talk about action. So much of our time, it seems, is spent on just figuring out the story and culling together info. And I love how you talk about we're focused on the action because now we've got the story. So it's just like so much efficiency there. And I love that. And I will say that when we've met, sometimes I've seen where, you'll have somebody put a note and your team is amazing at the reply. Like you've got brilliant replies. And I think it's because people are feeling the results of those replies. It'd be like, I know they have this intervention and they said it's like this. Is that the way it's supposed to work? And someone's like, yeah, I said that too. And then the interventionist says, no, that's not the way it's supposed to work. And people go, oh. So I love your examples because they just get everyone on the same page very efficiently, that hallway conversation that's so hard to have with 20 people. Well, I appreciate your sharing, Paden. And again, any questions for Paden, please put them in the chat. And before we move on to Shelby, I am going to, Ken wanted to share something as well. So thank you, Paden. Go for it, Ken.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. I know we had a question in chat about high fives and what those look like. So I wanted to share that with you real briefly. So when Meredith was taught, and Meredith, jump in here if you want to share, but a high five looks like this. So Meredith has her template for her park cards, similar to some of these other ones where people call them shout outs, or one of our partners, Ocean View High School, says you can't spell love without OB. And so here you can see, you can have templates in there or certain things you're recognizing students for. You can add your own message. you can record a video of yourself. And so you could, if you've got high energy, you can record a video of yourself, and these route home to parents. So it makes it really easy to share positive feedback with students and parents, and then be able to pull that information to see who's getting recognized or not and best support students.
All right. Thank you, Ken.
Any other questions we can answer real quick before we move on to the next?
A training video to help create a template for the high fives. There actually within Intellispark, there are some videos that are right at the top of the screen for, how to do practically everything in here, and they never go away. That the creating of a template is incredibly easy. So you just, when you go into the high five area, you can click and you can create a template. And so it's very straightforward. I think I'm not going to put words in the mouths of my partners here, but half the time they'll be like, if I can't figure it out, it probably doesn't exist, because this is so straightforward. So, but I'm always here to hop in a 5-minute Zoom if you need that. But there are training videos in here, and again, very intuitive design. Okay, Shelby, we're gonna hand off to you. And Shelby Glover is one of our earliest partners. So many of the beautiful attributes of Intellispark come from feedback from Shelby and her team, who say, "Oh, if it did this." So we would always talk to her several years ago about things, and she really pressure tested for us, which we appreciate. Shelby is the assistant principal at Martinsburg High School in Berkeley County. And Shelby, if you could just share again the size of the school, anything unique, and again, just dive in with why you have embraced this, and your favorite features.
Yeah, so Martinsburg High School, so we have a student body of about 1,550, near 100 staff members, and we are one of 4 high schools in our county. I think there are 6 middle schools. That might not be correct, but I think.
About right.
And then many more intermediate and primary schools. Where we're kind of pretty central in the county, more intercity, I guess you could say, than other high schools in our area, but have a long history at Martinsburg. And sorry, that's my phone. And I think that our students there's a large portion of our student body whose parents and grandparents and so forth have gone through Martinsburg. And so they kind of have really strong relationships. I think relationships is what we do really well here. And I talk about it a lot, but in kind of my reading, one of the books that I always think of when I think about Intellispark is Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. And that's really because of all of the quick decision making I feel like we have to do as teachers or administration. But also, it's really important to know that kids are making those same really fast decisions about their teachers. And so I don't want a kid's decision about a teacher to be ruined just because of a miscommunication or because they didn't read a certain email. And I'll get into that more later, but I feel like in Intellispark, that's where it's really happened, because we do make these snap decisions all the time based on very little information. But really, in that book, at least, they're demonstrated to be much better than ones that are resulting from really lengthy deliberation. And I feel like the information Intellispark provides me also allows me to make those quick decisions. For us, the rollout, we focused on notes, kind of like how Meredith did. That's the only part that I required of our teachers. And I made a promise to them that I would not give them one more link to a form to fill out for failures or a form for parent logs, anything like that. We got rid of every single spreadsheet that we had. And we focus that just on notes. Now that's grown now at year, I think 4, but at the time, notes alone was able to take care of that for us. I do believe that there's better areas for certain information, but that's just how we started. I didn't want to have, that was the year, I think post-COVID, so 2021, 2022, and our teachers were experiencing burnout. And so I didn't want it to be one more thing for them. I really wanted it to be incredibly valuable, and I wanted it to streamline as many processes as possible. When we're looking at notes, and I'm showing you a profile of one of our assistant principals' daughters. Is that what you guys are all seeing, just to be clear?
Yes.
Okay,
Cameron.
so she's a phenomenal student. She actually happens to not really have any notes. But with our notes, I just wanted to show you topics is one of the newer things that came out with Intellispark. So it wasn't there when we first started. So many of the years of notes that we have don't have topics. I don't find it that it's super useful to go back in time and find topics for all of these notes. They still exist and people can scroll back through. But you can see just really on this school year, what our numbers are looking like. And so these are the topics that we have thus far. And I really think that I'm the same as Meredith mentioned, that when somebody says something like, hey, do you think it's possible to do this? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Or when a social worker says, me being attached to every one of these flags is killing me, I'm like, okay, let's get rid of it. Like, if it's not functional, it's constantly a work in progress, which is really important for me. So these are the topics that we have. But again, it's just super simple to add that note. And what I love about it beyond the topic is that we can attach files. We do have certain things that we want kids to stay with a kid. And so we can attach files, and we're looking at portfolios, and we do mock interviews for our students in 11th grade. And one of the things we're looking at is starting that in 9th grade with homerooms, and every year kind of the newest version being uploaded to stay with the student. But for me as an administrator, if I've had a really quick conversation, theoretically, I'd have to go to Weavis, look up all their teachers, type all their teachers into an email and go through that. And really, just with the click of a button, I can click all of that student's teachers. And it takes that little amount of time, and I hit send or publish, and they all get an email about it. So it saves an immense amount of time. Not only do they get that email, so it hopefully triggers them, but then it's living permanently on their profile. So marrying both of those to have that active information, because I think if it didn't send an email, it's hard to get people to just consume this passive information. But to get that email, but then also know that it's always here, is great. So that if in the future somebody's looking back and this is relevant, that's awesome. Of course, you can also do it just for sensitive information, which a lot of times we do in guidance in our social work for administrators. There is certain information that we don't think that everyone should have.
And Shelby, if you can go back to that example, I want people to see, and this was actually what I was going to ask Meredith about earlier on, is how do you feel comfortable that people are seeing the right information, and mindful of student data privacy. And so, one thing I mentioned was that as a teacher, you would only see information for your kids. You wouldn't need to see information for all kids. But that yellow dot next to a person's name indicates that they fall into a category that can see sensitive levels of information. If the information, the flag, the note, the support has a yellow dot next to it, it means people who cannot see sensitive information or shouldn't, it wouldn't even appear in here to them.
And I just switched over to the users, but I think from my point of view, I want control of that. I have a teacher who works with all of our kids on Connexus for credit recovery. She kind of needs access to more than just her role during the day, of her roster, I should say. I like that I don't have to email somebody at Intellispark to have a teacher's primary job or access level changed. I have control of that at all times. So it is a FERPA concern for me, but I also see the value of information. So I usually, kind of leave a day during a faculty meeting where I do open it up that teachers are allowed to see all students. And I ask all coaches or any teachers from the previous year to go ahead and add themselves as a trusted person on the kid's profile, just because that does get wiped as the next year progresses and they have new classes. So that's one of the things that we do a very limited amount of time. It's no amount of time that anybody's going to be getting information that they shouldn't have, but just say, hey, if you have those 3 to 5 kids from last year that you just feel like they're your kid, you have that relationship, or you're their coach, go ahead and add yourself to their profile. And it is really easy to do that. You can see here the team members. And so we just have them add themselves as a key connection. And just so that way it's somebody that's not disappearing at the end of an academic year and they're continuing to be there. So that is really important. But then after that, I shut it back down. I say, teachers, if you have the access level of a teacher, then you can only see those in your classes. But I just like that I have control over it. I don't know if that's because I'm a control freak, but that's what I like. So
and actually, we're about to give you even more because we have some additional use cases that have come up with different partners, independent schools around creating special groups who might be able to see. So that's coming up very soon. Yes.
And I like that it just makes it really nice, honestly. And especially for those people that have very unique roles to be able to have the access that they need. And, setting all of this I'm going off base, but setting all of those permissions I have full access to. So I feel like I'm very intentional with that. And it has changed over the years of what I think is okay for somebody to have access to and what is not. So that has been modified throughout the years.
Shelby, in the interest of time, I know we've got about 7 minutes. There were 3 areas that you also talked about. One being de-risking staff turnover, 2, meeting norms, and 3, custom lists around strategic planning.
Yeah. So in terms of a student story, that's where I like Intellispark, because I feel like kids give up this really, really vital information that's really personal to them. So some of our tags can be things like gender identity and things like that. And we all do live in a world right now in education, especially, I know all over the state, but we're in the Eastern Panhandle. We lose people to Maryland, Virginia. I don't want that kid to have to continually relive that and have to tell that story over and over. It doesn't honor the student. At the same time, I had a new counselor this year, and she was able to really quickly just look at some kids' profiles and pull some of the insight data to see who are the kids she's going to be working with. And even if she didn't get that done in the beginning of the year, she did do a chunk. If she gets a request for a meeting or she's pulling a kid in for their senior or junior meeting, she just reviews it really quickly. And it's not a deep dive. It's not going into these deep Weavis records, right? Or these files. It's just a really quick picture. And for us, surveys do that. You can see that Cameron has done all of these surveys over the years, and I can look at how our Getting to Know Me survey has changed or her social emotional well-being has changed over time. And that's really important for us to make those decisions. The norms, that was the other promise, is that I'm not going to make my teachers put information in here, but then I'm not going to put information in here. So all of our SAT meetings, all of our attendance meetings, we add the tags, we add the flags that we need people to take action on. We add notes whenever needed. I scheduled a parent meeting for yesterday after school. The parent didn't show. I really quickly texted those teachers and said, can one of you create the initial, so kind of like even a step back of what Paden did, but can one of you create the initial note and reply back to each other? Because when I call this parent back to reschedule, I'm not going to make them stay after school. I just think that doesn't honor their time. And now I already got them all together. I have a really quick note with them all sitting at the table together, which that's rare, but it works for us. And then I think you finally mentioned lists, and my custom lists are all loading, but I run lists a lot for our strategic plans. So looking at subgroup data and actually having data that is not just what the state provides. So you can see I look at a lot of low well-being within different racial groups and see how that changes over time. What I love about lists is that they are ever changing without me having to rerun the list. So I just kind of grab the data right when we do an initial survey, and then when we do other surveys throughout the year, I can grab the numbers off of there. It's really, really easy for me. And we've done, things have ebbed and flowed over the years. Like we used to use Lunch Bunch with Mr. Sherman, have lunch with them, kind of gotten away from that a little bit. But I do like that I can share certain lists too. So I can share a mentor program for 2 students that have been recently flagged to be a part of that program with Mr. Sherman, because he's the one who works with the liaison for that. And so we're both seeing the same thing. That's just really, really important for me. If I can squeeze it in, I'd say the final thing is I'm in charge of special education. So I also love that, you need to do transition surveys with your special education students. I love that you can also build your own surveys or forms. And so we have built our own transitional surveys. Traditionally, those were printed, filled out by hand. Really the only people that saw it was like the case manager or the student. Now everyone has access to it. And if the kid is taking the time to fill it out, I want the counselor, social worker, the student, the teachers, everyone to be working with the same data. And that's really important for us.
Again, you guys are amazing at the fire hose. I hope everyone out there is really thirsty because you're getting a lot of it. One thing I want to point out is that if you were to create a form for staff to fill out about a student as input to a meeting, or a survey for students to fill out, when you create it, you can designate it as sensitive as well. So in this case, it's an example of, I want people to be able to access it. This is information that will help them all. Occasionally, we do have schools using mental health surveys, and they may just want a subset of people to see the results of what a student says. So you can make it sensitive as well. Shelby?
If I can share just one more thing, just because I know we looked at high fives, but it can just kind of show you. So we have like the combination of messages and high fives, so that it is easy for teachers to just grab a high five really quick. Great class participation at the beginning of a faculty meeting, because those are part of our norms. But we do have some of these messages that will autofill, and you can really easily select it to go to the parent. And so my mouse has been a little wonky lately, but if I do a cell phone violation, there we go, using my keyboard, then it autofills like Cameron's name here. Thank you for this support. And I can notify her dad, who's our AP here, but it's really nice. I would say that because it's new right now, most of our messages are maybe of like a correctional manner, or I hate to say negative, but a lot of the positive messaging is through high fives. But I love that that's one thing that I can make so much easier for my teachers, because they are supposed to contact home. And so this is the warning, and in our county policy, they get a warning the next time I'm writing in here, the next violation will result in confiscation of the device. So it's the same messaging coming from all of our teachers to all of our parents, all of our students. And I've made it that much easier for our teachers who maybe don't have time to make the phone call.
Fantastic. Thank you, Shelby. And I see Meredith would also like to share her teacher feedback form. I love the sharing. Go for it.
Hold on, let me unmute and let me share on the screen. Here we go. Yeah, so Paden had mentioned that he kind of sends out a note and gets teachers to respond. For us, we created a form to do that. So if I'm having a parent meeting, we send an action to the secretary to set up that meeting. And part of her action is to then send out this teacher feedback form to everybody on that student's team. So this tier 2 form, basically we built it out to get this information from our teachers. And as they fill it out, it shares with us how they maintain their notes, their study skills, their self-advocacy, their behavior. So when the parents come in, ideally we have 6, 8 of these filled out, and it's showing us strengths, weaknesses, and then you can also go into them individually and look for the specifics that teacher might have shared. So when you get into these types of forms, even that has been really beneficial for us, and that's all part of that workflow that we do. So yeah, I need a tier 2 meeting. I send an action to that secretary. She schedules it with the parents. She sends out the teacher feedback form. When my counselors and my admins walk into that meeting, they open up Intellispark and they start doing their work there. And if they decide certain supports are needed, they record them right then and there. Teachers are informed right then and there. And then I'll also just piggyback on the idea of confidentiality. It was my number one concern when we started our conversations about adopting Intellispark. My counselors, I have 6 of them, are very, very particular about what is shared about their kids and what is forward facing. And they are completely comfortable. So I kind of lead by them. Like, if you're comfortable, because you're much more concerned and strict about it than I am, it's very much more on their radar than mine. Then if they're comfortable, I'm comfortable. And they also love when you can go into notes, you can hide that and keep those private. So for my counselors, they actually do their student private notes in Intellispark. So it's right then there. And they're not going into some other product or, notebook or Excel sheet to take their notes on their kids. It's one-stop shop for them as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And to be clear, you come to the student's page, put the student at the center of the action. You want to know what's going on. You want to know what's been said. You want to know the history, just go to their page. It's all there over their time in a school district or in a school. So I know we are over the allotted time.
Sorry, my soccer team's playing. Shelby's
Well,
team's going to be down here too. And I'm like, we had a kick on goal.
I think
So,
a little bit ago.
we did not leave a lot of extra time. We didn't leave any extra time. Are there any urgent questions from the crowd? Does anyone want to go out there and ask a question for our amazing, amazing leaders here, from whom we all learned so much? Yeah, and certainly I'm not going to put words in your mouth of all of you, but if I'm confident that if you had a specific question for Paden or Meredith or Shelby, they would be happy to answer your question, and we can share their contact information, their email addresses. Ken, did you want to share something too?
Oh, I'm getting a few just private messages. I put a link into chat, so for those asking for other information, go ahead and click that. Great. I'm glad you see that there. Please let us know. We'd love to meet with you. And, you've got busy teams, and this is all about how do we take what you're already doing, put it all into one place, make it much easier. And also everybody's in a different step of this journey. So I think the panelists would be the first to say that they all call MTSS something different. Some people don't even call their work that quite yet. They're in different phases of rolling this out. And Patricia especially, and I are here just to step through that process with you of taking one foot in front of the other. So thank you so much.
Well done, everyone. I can't say enough about these folks. They are just what they care about. Their passion for students just moves right from passion to action. It's just brilliant to watch. So huge applause for you all. Thank you. I'm sure your students and families thank you, and your colleagues as well. But thank you all who joined today. I hope this was fruitful. I hope it was a satisfying lunch, and may you all have a fabulous November. Thank you so much. Take care, all.